other women behind us. But how can we do that? One, we must always choose collaboration over competition. Let us begin to deal with these negative stereotypes about women that we compete with one another. Can we show that if we work collaboratively, we can achieve? The second one is we need to advocate not only for ourselves, but for other women as well. Women, in my view, should not just break barriers for themselves, but they must create a pathway for others to follow. And that is the only way in which we can uplift others. We can continue to mentor. I agree with what the principal has said. So the question really for me is no longer whether women can lead, but it is how much society can achieve if every woman is given the opportunity to do so. So let us be the ones that also allow the space and opportunity for those that come behind us to really thrive and succeed. As a parting shot, colleagues, I want to say that what Michelle Obama once said really resonates with our discussion today. She said, and I quote, "No country can ever truly flourish if it stifles the potential of its women and deprive itself of the contributions of half of its citizens." Thank you very much, colleagues, for the opportunity just to share some reflections with yourselves on what the constitutional architecture looks like, how the institutions that support democracy can advance women, but ultimately, how is it that we as women leaders can promote ethical leadership and build the ethical state that is envisaged in the National Development Plan? I appreciate the opportunity, Ms. Mkwanazi. And once again, I really apologize for the mishap this morning. I would have wanted to have been there with colleagues to interact, but I'm sure an opportunity will present itself next time. Thank you very much. That concludes my contribution this morning.
Thank you, Advocate. I hope you could hear the clapping from the room. Maybe we give you another round of applause.
I cannot hear anything from the venue, but I appreciate the clapping.
Okay, colleagues, the technology is not helping us. But thank you, and we appreciate that in your busy schedule you managed to still make it possible to be with us. Yes, it's online, but the commitment we appreciate. I know that something came up, but you still said you'll still honor this appointment, so we're grateful for that. We're going to allow some questions or reflections from the room. We hope you'll be able to hear as the people respond. Can we check?
What will assist Ms. Mkwanas is perhaps from the podium, because I can hear you from the mic in the podium. I just can't hear from the room. So if perhaps the questions can be read from the podium, it will assist me. Thank you.
Okay, you can hear me right now.
Yes, I can hear you. I just can't hear the room. Yes.
Yes, we'll move the mic around so that they use the mic. Okay. Can we see any hands? Anyone wants to reflect or ask a question?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Advocate, for the lovely keynote or masterclass. My name is Ondata Oshiangetli. I have just newly stepped into the cold, dark world of social entrepreneurship. I'm interested in driving inclusive AI futures for our country. Now, I think one of the things that I found to have been a gap in the conversation today with the Advocate is the issue of young women leaders. I think whilst we see great progress of our more elderly, matured leaders that we see in various positions, but young people, and by the way, by young now I even do think we should go up to age 40, maybe even the early 40s. But yes, I think that's another issue that I think is maybe the youth age itself needs to be revised, given the issues that we have faced. I actually turned 40 a couple of days ago. I'm unemployed right now. And literally I'm finding that I can't access certain opportunities because of that. But for this question, it's not just about the 40, but about young women in general, that perhaps we need to actually start catching up to on the representation of early 30s into early 40s in serious big leadership. I think there isn't trust for a young person to lead. Another one that I would have loved the advocate to have touched on is the status of a woman in our country in leadership. Significantly, we are divorced, we are single women, we are young, we are faced with so many mental issues and so forth. And we find these matters also contributing to discrimination against us in being placed in opportunities. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies. You all look beautiful. Good morning, Advocate. Thank you so much for a comprehensive presentation. You mentioned something. Oh, I am Refilo Mokhale from the Department of Basic Education. Advocate Dube, you mentioned something. You said as we climb up as women in leadership, we need to make sure that we advocate for other women as well who are following behind us. So from a governance perspective, system barriers often persist, sorry. When addressing structural barriers, many women encounter subtle administrative marginalization, such as being excluded from key strategic teams or decision-making channels. Now, my question is, how can public servants effectively leverage administrative justice and institutional integrity frameworks in order to challenge these subtle unwritten barriers without really risking professional fallouts as women in leadership, in governance?
Thank you. We'll take the last hand.
All right, good morning. Thank you so much.
Can we ask you to stand for the camera to locate you? Thank you.
All right, good morning. Thank you so much, Advocate. My name is Tabani Zondani Hiazi, and I'm so grateful to be here. What I've often found in the entities that we work for the government is the fact that there is willingness for women to lift each other up, but the support is the biggest issue. In my space, I'm advocating for it, and I'm like, I'm here, I avail the time, but I mean, the issues that speaks to women, whether you have a women advancement program, you're not measured, it's basically competing with your outputs. Then it makes it very difficult to, to advocate for other people. So I'm thinking perhaps we need to look into that and see how can we either measure or put a bit of a KPI for the entities, or rather for a government institution, so that they're measured in terms of advancing the women. Because when you want to do it, you have the limitation of saying, okay, do I compromise my outputs versus, just pushing the agenda of women. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dinky is still there. These are difficult questions, but I'm sure you can use your experience to respond to them.
Thank you very much, Pindile. Indeed, these are very difficult questions, which I'm sure the answers are within all of us here today. I want to start with my Maibizo Uposha, the question, and maybe just deposit a few things. I don't profess to have all the answers for you, but I think it's important that we do recognize the important work has been done just really around youth development. We know the existence of the NYDA. We know the Department of Women and Youth that has been established. What we're also finding now is the programs that have been implemented across the public sector that are really targeted at giving young people the opportunity and experience to enter at least in the public service. For example, the 2-year internship program. I know it's not enough, but at least we cannot then overlook some of those significant interventions that have been put in place. Where I would agree with you certainly is there definitely is a need for the public service in particular to really reflect about some of the barriers to entry, and colleagues from NSG and the DPSA, if they are there, can agree to that. And I remember one former minister actually used to ask the question to say, if you look at the requirements, for example, of work experience, if you are required as an entry-level post to have 3 years of work experience, she asked the question to say, would the public service in South Africa have actually employed a Bill Gates, for example, or a Mark Zuckerberg, who we know have famously dropped out of school and didn't finish? But in the public service, we're saying the only way in which for you to enter, you must have these many years of experience. So that is the one area that probably would need to be considered to really bridge the gap. But some programs that are there meant for the mentorship just need to be strengthened, in my view, in order to address this. Now, the scenario you've painted about just what women are going through, especially Black women in South Africa, is one I agree with 100%. It's unfortunate, colleagues, that I wasn't able to project my slide, but when I was talking about the statistics as we know them around poverty and how it affects women disproportionately, I must say that being the first speaker, I didn't want to give very somber, statistics, but it certainly touches on exactly what you are saying. So the achievements that have been made, and certainly we cannot underplay them. It is quite significant today to say the apex court in the land is led by Black women, when only in 1994, 30 years ago, it was less than 1%. So we can never underplay that. But that is not enough. And I fully agree with you that there's certainly more needs to be done. And therefore, we look for institutions as the NYDA, as well as the department that is entrusted with that responsibility. Now, your question, Refile, for me is so important because you're starting to actually take responsibility to say, what can we do in our day-to-day work in the workplace? Now, I want to introduce a concept that Prof. Thuli Madonsela spoke about, is that in the space of the fight against corruption, we know there are whistleblowers. So on one hand, we encourage you to report and whistleblow. But there's another category of role players that is often underlooked. And this is called graft blockers. So meaning if on a daily basis, you find that there are public servants who routinely send back submissions, say, no, this is not compliant to the law, this is irregular, and not supported. So that's the concept of graft blockers. So what I would encourage is that let us not only ensure that we understand the roles and responsibilities, the policies, and all the regulations that apply, that we are not party to supporting, recommending, as well as suggesting anything to our principals that is contrary to the relevant prescripts in our spaces. So that is how in a day-to-day, so you have to be conscious and alive and ensure that you understand all the applicable prescripts and then not be party to doing the wrong thing. What we also would want to request from a public protector perspective is that the constitutional bodies issues recommendations, the public protector will issue remedial actions, but we are finding that the implementation rate is quite low. And so what I would ask for colleagues in the platform is that look out for some of the recommendations that come to the constitutional bodies, including those of the public protector remedial actions, and ensure that they get implemented. We're seeing that at least in the national departments, they're doing relatively well, but the picture looks bleak as you go down in provinces as well as in municipalities, where there seems to just be a culture of ignoring the recommendations of not only and remedial actions of not only the public protector, even from the Auditor General. Year in, year out, we see the reports of the AG that paint a picture of progressively irregular as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure increasing as opposed to decreasing, which suggests that all of the recommended corrective action hasn't actually been implemented, and therefore we're not able to really curb the perpetuation of corruption and loss of public funds. So really my appeal to colleagues and to you, Refile, is just remain vigilant and ensure that if you make a decision yourself that you are not going to be party to any processing of any request that is contrary to the law, and of course unlawful instructions. The PSC, if colleagues would want to know, if you go to their website, they've got a guide on how to manage unlawful instructions, and I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with that. And the last question really around what can we do in our respective workplaces to ensure the advancement of women? For me, the starting point should really be, let's look at what are the laws that regulate that. We know in procurement, for example, you've got the preferential procurement legislation. We also have the requirement in terms of triple BEE. But how many are those of us who are in the supply chain space actually care to look at the companies that we contract with? Are they women owned and are they youth owned, right? So over and above, of course, the technical know-how on how to deliver on the service, but do we actually really pay attention and be really intentional about ensuring that we procure from companies that are owned by women and the youth? And of course, insofar as employment is concerned, we know we've got the Employment Equity Act, but in my experience, we see that institutions actually never comply and never meet their employment equity plans. And so now we have the plan, we make the time to develop these plans, but we just shove them and never really implement them. So for me, it's really, again, being about intentional making those conscious decisions to ensure that we redress all of these past imbalances by implementing all the legislations and the laws that are there to ensure that the women, and I would want to add the youth here as well, are protected. Thank you very much, Ms. Mkwanazi. I hope I have answered the questions. I don't know if we're going to take another round. I'm happy to be around till about 11 o'clock, at which stage I'd need to exit the meeting.
Thank you so much, Dinky, for your inputs and the responses. I think you've answered some of the questions, or we'll take one more. Okay. We've got one more.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to pose a question with regards to what we've seen emerging at local government, in particular the killings that are happening, particularly around, sorry, my name is Figile Shabangu from Salga, particularly around the staff that are employed in the budget and treasury offices and also in procurement. We know that for political leadership, there is a mechanism where the leaders can apply to SAPS for threat analysis and they are provided with security. But at administrative leadership level, there's no concrete position from government. And I just want to hear what the thoughts would be from the Public Protector's Office to just strengthen security for such cases. What are the most appropriate interventions that can be put in place? Because it is a structural barrier. I mean, there was mention about the whistleblowing, but the protection as well of whistleblowers, that needs to be strengthened. Thank you.
Okay, do we have one last one. One here in front.
A very good morning. My name is Tondani. I'm from DCOC. The question to the advocate, and thanking you very much for the presentation. You indicated that women should make appointments based on merits. So the question is, in a case where women are not empowering themselves, how do we leverage the imbalance? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm shown another hand over there. Sister.
Morning, ladies. My name is Kopano, and I'm one of the young women in attendance. And my question to Advocate Dube is, from what I've observed, is that there aren't many initiatives in place to protect women in law. Most times there's tendencies to gatekeep opportunities, and in practice, not many women occupy this area because most times we are marginalized. So I speak on behalf of aspiring young legal professionals like myself, and I request that the public protector assists in implementing programs where women in law will be safeguarded against feeling like they have no power to make decisions in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, thank you.
Yes, no, thank you very much. I want to start with the question on merit-based appointments because I think that is an easy one, in a sense that we have the NSG. So the first thing I would do, I would encourage women, especially those that are in the public service, to really utilize the programs of the NSG. But we also know that many employers have got a bursary scheme of some sort where they fund for us to upskill ourselves. So it's a way in which we can remain relevant. In fact, colleagues, you know, I've just been reflecting. I obtained my master's in 2000, and although it's in constitutional law and human rights, and then of course subsequently did some training, 3-week training on mediation. I do feel that I'm a little bit rusted and want to join. I've done some programs with the NSG like last year on ethical leadership. So for me, really, it's just continuous learning and growing, taking advantage of some of these free online programs that are there, and of course, the bursary schemes that are afforded in our respective employments. Now, on the initiative to advance women in law, especially within the space of the public protector, I'm happy, colleagues, to share that the public protector has had a program where it's called junior investigators. At the time, they were called assistant investigators, but it is a level below what traditionally is your assistant director, where they would onboard young professionals in the legal space, and of course in the various space and fields that the public protector will source from, but predominantly is in the legal space. I'm aware that we are also now in the process to resuscitate that. And recently we were at the Eastern Cape on a community outreach where we were launching a program that we are doing in collaboration with the United Nations, where we're identifying champions, young community activists who really want to support their communities in the report of service delivery concerns, even on unethical conduct. So we've only launched it in the Western Cape. I do believe that we intend to see if it can be rolled out countrywide, budget dependent, of course. So certainly there are some initiatives that we are taking that are geared towards the empowerment of women, especially in the legal field. However, as I said, it may not be enough, but one can utilize it The internship programs that are run also offer such an important opportunity, at least to gain the experience and exposure. What I would also propose is that also just have a look out of some of the organization and professional bodies that you can join. That I know there's one, women in the law, and see to what degree it can actually assist in this regard. Then the last question really about whether the mechanisms that exist are enough to protect ethical employees, especially who are in high risk positions like supply chain and even auditors. We've seen the reports about the killing of those. My personal view, and this I must say is personal view because it's outside the ambit of the public protector, is that one, certainly there needs to be strengthening of the criminal justice systems, one, and two, if you are a public servant, I believe you do have the opportunity to apply for at least a threat assessment to be done to then determine whether or not the SEPs can offer some form of protection. So for all public servants that are there, I would encourage you to talk to your principals and leadership and do that application if you do believe that you are in high risk. But the point about whistleblower protection, which is the area I can speak confidently about, is that indeed what you are asking for, work is already underway. The Department of Justice is in fact strengthening the Whistleblower Protection Act. We are also going to see some new innovations. For example, the cry of many whistleblowers, especially those in Zondo Commission, were saying that not only have they suffered occupational detriment, some were pushed out of institution, some resigned and left, but that they are also left with a financial burden. So then there are conversations around whether shouldn't there be some kind of fund that is availed to those who have suffered from having reported any impropriety, and perhaps some form of financial support. So in my view, that piece of legislation will go a long way to really address some of the gaps that were there insofar as whistleblower protection is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dinky. Can we give a round of applause? Thank you so much for your inputs and the discussion around the room. We are now going to do a quick Mentimeter. Thank you. We appreciate you being with us. We will go on a break shortly, but we're going to do a Mentimeter where we get some inputs from the room on part of the discussions that we're having today. And yes, so colleagues in the room, yes, you see, I'm seeing a lot of NSG students here. They know what to do. So use your phone to scan, or you can go to menti.com and enter that code and answer the questions that we have in that. There won't be a lot, and it's anonymous, so no one will know it's you. So please do give us your inputs. Just reflecting on some of the suggestions or questions that was said here around, we've got our own priorities, our own targets to perform. What if we're to put a KPA of mentoring someone as part of the activities so you don't get penalized for doing that, for supporting someone else? So it's all up to us. We write our own performance agreements, maybe consider that as part of the solutions in being of support to someone else. We put it as a mentoring KPA. Yes, can continue with the Mentimeter. We're going to take a break and we should be back in the room at 11. Again, want to thank our first input maker, Advocate Dinky Dube, for her time and her valued contribution to the topic for today and what is happening within the women's space. We are more aware around a whole lot of areas of issues that are there and what has happened to move things forward for us women. And we thank you for sharing. Okay,
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
thank you.
I'm exiting now. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so the last 2 minutes, just finish off the Mentimeter, then we'll take that 15 minutes body break, then we start at 11. Thank you, colleagues.
Heaven, it's a heaven. Sleep.
Oh, tequila.
Yeah.
I've joined on Teams so that I can drive for myself than asking them to push the slides. So I checked I am able to share. So maybe we can check if you can display me there.
If I display, it's not gonna, that's why I want.
Gonna lose quality.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just do one last touch up then. I'll give it to you. You can give me that. Okay, thanks. Thank you. I'll bring it.
I know when.
Give me 5 minutes. 5. Yes, Mbonzi, ngicela ungisharela nami no presentation. Okay. Yes, ungikopie noma ungisharela ungikopie. All right. Because I'll give you the flash disk. You can take it. ENCA wait. Ufaka ku-Twitter. Needs to get something from your presentation. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Ay. Sekafikile Mpumzi lo endithetha naye, lo endikwislot naye. Ingasaqale. Ndikhona sisintla just khokuthaqale ndiyaqela. I'm good. I'm updating. Unjani we? Sure, ndingumntu nje ndilale ngo-2. Only came back izolo. That's why I'm on this, and time was like, if I don't sleep, I'm not gonna have the eyes to look at the people most. Hey. Mm-mm. Yho, bazondisokolisa njani xa bendidrayivela? Eish, I don't know banzawumaneja njani man. Ndimane ndithi go to the next slide. Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody. So happy to hear the buzz. This is part of what we expect to happen. Hopefully, you are not clinging to those that you know from the same organization, that you've widened out a bit. So for us to be true to our program, even as we bring our favorite goodies in, let's be settled, and we humbly now ask us to turn our attention to the second segment. It's a two-part, having had the lead input that we all enjoyed. And that lead input, just to reiterate, was framed around from awareness to action, identifying, confronting, and breaking structural barriers to women's leadership, why it is everybody's task. So keep that in mind against the backdrop of Advocate Dube's input. Where we're going now with our two input makers back to back, we are framing their input around the sub-theme synergies for resilience. And we want to highlight valuing intergenerational dynamism and building sustainability together. And from the why earlier, it is more to the how. Of course, the two go together, even as you heard from Advocate Dube's input, the how is coupled with the why, even more now. As you join me in welcoming our two input makers. So small things that we sometimes leave for later that are not so important include, for example, my name. I am Millie Baile. I'm with the National School of Government. I'm foregrounding you and our input makers. So let me get us ready. Our next input maker is Ms. Zingapi Ngewu. We know her as an associate of the National School of Government, but she is actually an organizational development specialist with over 21 years of strategic business experience, including 14 years dedicated to organizational effectiveness, culture transformation, learning and development, and leadership development. She partners with executive leadership teams to align strategy, leadership culture, learning, organizational capability to enable sustainable organizational performance and measurable business outcomes. Her expertise spans organizational development, capability development, culture transformation, change management, team effectiveness, talent strategy, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Grounded in behavioral science and organizational psychology, she designs and implements evidence-based interventions that strengthen leadership capability, enhance organizational culture, and build high-performing workplaces where people and performance thrive together. Ms. Ngewu has successfully partnered with organizations across the FMCG, mining, financial services, banking, public sector, development agencies, manufacturing, travel and tourism, retail sectors, and others, delivering practical solutions that translate strategy into sustainable behavioral change. She's passionate about creating inclusive, values-driven organizations, and she believes sustainable transformation is achieved when strategy, leadership, culture, learning, and people are intentionally aligned. So please join me, put our hands together to welcome Zingapi. There's 40 minutes. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. We just say all protocol observed. Okay. And thank you so much, Prof, for that introduction. And I think, I guess, through the previous speakers, the advocate and Ms. Mkwanazi. I'm actually Mkwanazi, but I go by the surname of Ngewu, so I think I should
change my surname to Mkhwanazi. It will still not be lost. So, and then again, thank you to the NSG team for all the support and really entrusting me with such an important topic. And again, I say thank you to the previous speakers because they created a very nice platform and touched on important aspects of this, which makes my job very easier because you'd recall from the presentation of the advocate, she spoke about historical issues. She spoke about structural issues and systematic issues, but you'd recall that towards the end of her presentation, she did make a personal call. I know she referred us to the Constitution. She referred us to the Constitution and referring to the principles and the frameworks that are encompassed in there. And I think also very nicely summarized in the professionalization framework. So then my engagement is inspired by resilience, I think at the core of it as it appears on the agenda. But we are aligning resilience into intergenerational dynamism, and then also looking at how do we sustainably build together. And Prof read my profile, you'd hear that I operate as more of a specialist who is definitely a behavioral enthusiast. And I always say wherever there are people I go, whether they are in the public service, whether they are in mining or in the fast moving consumer goods, because behavioral principles are universal. So, and then again, in preparation of this, oh, shucks, I forgot that I'm driving for myself there. And then in preparation for this presentation today, I've got so many slides. I'm gonna try fly through them, but it's definitely not death by the slides. It's just really connecting the narrative that I'm presenting. And I contend, before I get challenged by the scholars in the room, because they're gonna say you contend, and who are you? In the body of knowledge. So my conclusion really is that resilience is not built within generations, but it is built between generations. So that's how I would like to put this to you. And as I open my narrative, we will be trying to align with this, because I think this is not only a call to the generations ahead of us or the generations behind, but it's a call to all women in the leadership fraternity. And again, I say leadership is a relay, not a race. And I'm sure those are concepts that you are familiar with. Or in fact, particularly this concept about leadership not being a relay, but rather a race. But what we are actually doing, or what I'm trying to do in this conversation, is to help us kind of look at what would rethought resilience would look like. But before we get there, I'm gonna briefly look at where do we find South Africa today in the world? And then also, I am going to briefly talk about at the leadership moment, we cannot ignore that we find ourselves in as leaders. And then I'm also gonna briefly talk about what prevents generations from thriving together. And then I think the gist of it is really around rethinking resilience. And then when I'm done with that, I will also talk about building together sustainably. And then closing with an invitation to look at ourselves and see how would we look like if we present or as the bridge. So that would be at the end of my engagement. So going straight to it, it is important that we understand our reality from time to time, because we know the change is happening faster than we have ever witnessed before. And then also it is important that in looking at where we are, we do recognize the shifts that we experience or we witness, and then also how do we then embrace the opportunity that each moment presents to us as South Africans. And then, so I talk about, okay. So I say that our world is changing. So maybe in particular, we might be interested in line with this conversation. What is it exactly that I'm referring to? At glance, I'm looking at technology consistently disrupting the way we work. We can look at it as a disruption, but I say it's a sweet disruption because I managed to put these beautiful slides through this technology. But then I know there's always a notion of, is it copy and paste? I can never rely on AI to organize my thoughts or inspire my narrative, but I can use it to enhance how I relay the message to my audience. So disruption, I say then it's a sweet disruption. And then also we are operating as a public service sector in an environment where citizens are expecting faster and more responsive services. We've seen recent case studies where citizens are taking matters into their own hands. And then also a trust in institutions must be continuously be earned. So how do we every day regain that trust, which again, I think it talks to the element of resilience, because we come from experiences where we've witnessed a steady trust, but no more in the times that we lead in. And then also we face complex social, economic, and climate changes. I was so inspired last week. I got to spend a day at the Tutu Foundation and at the exhibition, and it was quite interesting to me to learn about how Desmond Tutu back in the day started talking about climate changes and how we experience them today. And then also the future, the future demands new ways of leading. So that's where we find ourselves. And then that then informs my second point, where then I say the moment that we are in as leaders, we cannot ignore operating in this changing society, a disrupted world, and a public service that is under extreme pressure, and a future that will not wait. And then we say the challenge before us as leaders demands a new kind of leadership. And this is the leadership that connects generations and creates sustainable impact. So that is the moment we cannot ignore. And then my third point, I guess as much as I said, I've got 38 slides. I'm quite pleased with my pace, and I hope that you are connecting the dots that build up to the core narrative of this presentation today. So the third point then says that if we are aware of these movements, we are aware of this change, but then why are we still getting feedback like we got from the room after the advocates' presentations, where we learn about this toxicity, where we learn or hear about the circumstances that we find ourselves socially as women, and also, I think very importantly, the state of our mental well-being. Then this question becomes relevant, where we say then, what prevents us from thriving together? And it's very interesting to learn that this note is actually rather psychological. And I did mention that the advocate spoke about structural issues, which I'm not gonna go to. And then she spoke about systematic issues and historic issues, which I'm not gonna go to. But we cannot deny the fact that at the core of all this system is a human being, and we are psychology. And I say these issues are psychological because we see assumptions when we form assumptions. I'm not sure if you can read the tiny writing there, but I will just read as I mention each. It's even more tiny on my screen here, but I'll do my best. So these psychological aspects cut across the assumptions that we make, that as human beings, we instantly assume rather than understanding. And you'd see there at the bottom, it says that differences are natural, but disconnection is a choice. So when we say that, it is by no means that we say we blame ourselves for making assumptions, because it's a natural way of being. We will start by making assumptions, but it's empowering to learn that disconnection is a choice. Then the question becomes, when I make an assumption, how do I then move from that? And then the labels that we put, we label instead of listening. These people, that generation, the Gen Zs, there's a lot of labeling that goes around. And then again, we cannot blame ourselves for that, because we are human beings. And the question remains, how do we then handle that? And then hierarchy, we all know very much about that, how it really prevents us from thriving. We also can talk about the knowledge hoarding, and the list goes on. I also have lack of safety, which I would like to double click on, because we are going to talk about it, because of lack of safety, of psychological safety, we then get prevented from thriving together. And then also the stereotypes that we form about each other. So at the core of it, that's how this colorful toxicity transpires. It stems from the essence of being a human being, but ignorance kicks in when we then do not accept and acknowledge that, for us to develop strategies to manage it, because what we are aware of, we can manage, but what we are unaware of manages us. We hear sad stories of people quitting their jobs because of this ignorance of humanity. So again, I hope this fits in nicely. I didn't have time to develop this slide into a sleek version, but I think it still carries the message, because I say there are these natural ways of unfolding for us as human beings. How do they happen? Where do they happen? It all begins with perception. I'm not gonna give a lecture about the dynamics of perception, but rather I'm gonna keep it to 2 slides where I say it all begins from this. We are different generations. Our perspectives, our perceptions are informed by the times we've grown up in, even though we've grown up in different times, even the groups that grow up in the same times, they are exposed to different challenges in the environments and the societies that are brought up in. So when we say the dynamic aspect of this, it's important that we pay attention to that, because it doesn't mean that because we belong to the same group, we are confronted by the same relational challenges. So regardless of where we are, which generation we fall under, but at the core of it is the power of perception, meaning that we need to learn to manage our perception. And the beauty about perception is that it's not a matter of ability or not, because we learn that as much as your perception is your truth, but there's always their truth that governs the way we should be showing up, encompassed in where the advocate referred us to go and revisit those principles. So then if number 4 says the logs, there are 4 logs on the floor, that's their truth. But then on the other side, we see someone saying, no, there's 3. That is also their truth. So that represents what we refer to psychologically when we talk about generational differences. So, and then you may ask yourself, in reality, how many logs are on the floor? So I was saying the beauty is that when we shift perspective, our perception changes. But now you hear us as leaders using the 2 concepts interchangeably, but they are related, but they stand for different things, and also very powerful to understand, to say your perception is your truth, but when you shift your perspective, you get to see others' perspectives as well. And I call it a walk of fame, because it's a journey that is characterized by pain when we stand, when I see 3 and you see 4, to a point that when psychological safety is threatened, that 3 is not pronounced. We say 4. And then depending how safe we feel, we say, yes, 4. But is it really 4? So that's why I'm saying that in my opening, I said that the concept of resilience is not built within the generations, because we share the same perspectives, but how do we then build between the different generations? So that is the power of perception. We can take any case study and try and examine it with all its roses and flowers. I don't know the names of different flowers. I'm a proud subject of Bantu, so I never had time to learn about the peonies and but we talk about the Madlanga commissions. We talk about all this colorful world. It all stems from how we handle our perception, because it carries a power to connect or disconnect us. And it gets so dramatic, which the next slides represent, because I keep saying it is a natural way of being. That is an extract from a video called Conscious Leadership. Should you take interest in getting an accurate narrative of that slide, please do go to Google and put Conscious Leadership illustration above and below the line. It's a very quick and short video. Pay attention to it, learn on it, and try to locate yourself. Because when we talk about emotions, they happen in a continuum. So you can't always be below or above the line. But the question is, can you recognize yourself when you are operating from below the line as opposed to above the line. Because if we operate from below the line, that's where psychological safety is diminished. I hope you're connecting the dots. Fantastic. So you love that video. Please go to the, I believe Nompumelelo is running a live chat or something. Go put your post in there on what, on how we can better use this in helping us thrive together by being above the line. Time won't allow me to go any deeper, but I hope you do get the concept to say that to thrive together, we need to start being mindful of how we are located when we go into those day-to-day engagements. Are we coming from below or are we coming from above the line? Because as we're saying on the previous slides, naturally, because we are human, we are inclined to go below the line. But then how do you then move consciously? How do you consciously move yourself from below to above the line? Becomes a game changer. And then my fourth point, so now we left with 2. Did I say 6 or 7? 6. Okay. So now in this context, how do we then now rethink resilience? We've always learned about resilience being the capacity to adapt, recover, and grow in the face of change. The focus is very individualistic when we look at that. But then resilience is also not just about bouncing back. It is about growing forward together. And when I then say that, or shift it from an individualistic point of view to a collective, it then begins with the mindset, which we can easily link it back to the above and below the line transaction. It is about relationships. It is about purpose, growth, and sustainability. So, my apology. I'm only driving for myself here. So then the question I have then with that is, what if resilience is something organizations can create together? Because a new perspective into that, I think I've already mentioned, is that we used to believe resilience lived inside individuals. But with what I've briefly shared, I'm sure you can start to align to the fact that resilience lives in relationships, not isolation. Think of the 3 and the 4. I need you to hear me when I say 3 and you say 4. I need you to take keen interest, to take the walk of fame, to come see things from my point of view, because when we change perspective, our perception changes. So you can see how I then say resilience lives in relationships, but not in isolation. And then to further illustrate on that, looking at resilience as a collective system, we say that it is created in the spaces between us, because in doing that, I bring my experience, I bring my story, you bring your ideas, and together we build strength. Because the changes or the challenges that are posed by the changes that we are navigating are definitely not going to be solved by just one generation. And then, I'm really good at this. Sorry, so that's what I was talking about it. About when I say we can look at resilience as a collective system. And then again, a further illustration there is that the call is for us to move from resilience as an individual strength to resilience as a collective practice. And I hope that makes sense for everyone in the room right now, trying to rethink resilience. So therefore, our challenge is to stop asking, how do I become more resilient as a leader? But to start asking, how do we create conditions where we all can thrive and build resilience together? And then, so that's why I then say my inspiration was that resilience is not built within generations, but it is built between generations. And I'm just gonna talk briefly about the science of belonging, because it leads us to a very interesting point where we see the concept of Ubuntu, or where we see neuroscience meeting the concept of Ubuntu. So we say that people do not just need to feel competent, they need to feel connected. And very briefly, and again, I think touching back on what I said, that our brains are hardwired for connection. We look for the fact that, do I belong, do I not belong? Because remember, I said everything stems from perception. The moment you say 3 and you say 4, already that communicates a disconnect, which is a natural way of being. But then how do we then create safety to make room for both a 3 and a 4 to be pronounced, with the understanding that 3 is one truth and 4 is the other? And I usually say a 4 and a 3, 7 is bigger than 4 and 7 is bigger than 3. So there is a risk and danger in running with a single perspective, but for us to collaborate, we need to create that safety. And I always say, if people are not creating safety for you, create it for yourself. If it's that dangerous that you cannot connect the dots for safety, run away. What are you gonna do? Because that's why we say mental health, let's not underestimate, because when there is no congruence in the operation of this system, that's when we start to have our system giving up on us. And then also it's important for our brain, for us to feel seen, because when we feel seen, then we can engage. You say 4, tell me more, then I'm able to share more. But if you say what, then I'm not able to engage. And yes, what is the question? Because I see 3, you see 4. But safety is, how do you ask? How do you say what? Show me your perspective. And then feeling valued also allows the brain to contribute, because we're saying that it's gonna take a collective approach for us to thrive together. So where is that contribution? Is there room for it to happen? So a very nice connection there at the bottom to say, when I feel connected, I know I belong. When I belong, I am resilient. No matter what setback we can experience, I know I am in a safe space for me to rebuild, and then we can innovate and develop sustainable performance, or achieve a sustainable performance, not a seesaw. We're happy today, tomorrow we're not, because we are running purely on our perceptions. Principles are very important. I was so pleased when Advocate said, guys, let's go back to the Constitution, because what we're asking for, it's not even something that we are thumb sucking. It is there because our Constitution was cleverly built, not just in that present moment, but rather to, I always say principles are as much as they carry, as much as they're vulnerable to interpretation, but principles are not in the now focus. They always open room for change and improvement, because we still go back to the same principles. But as human beings, we've got an appetite to run with our perspective. And I always say, it's okay, run with your perspective, but one thing for sure, you're gonna be found wanting in a long run if you are operating away from principles, because even the women who lead this toxicity, it doesn't mean that they're only creating toxic environment for others, it also impacts them as well. So let's try and align to principles for us to see sustainable performance. And then I think I'm going to start to skip some of the slides now, because we have spoken about this psychological safety, but we say psychological safety is not really just about being nice. And it's a very well-studied concept as well, with beautiful content that says, when we feel psychological safe, we speak up without fear. We share ideas without risk. We ask for help without hesitation. And we admit mistakes without shame. So that's how important that safety is. Hence, I'm saying you need to ask for yourself, is it given? No. Can you create it for yourself? No. Then what are you doing? And that's where then I say the concept of Ubuntu and neuroscience meet, because Ubuntu reminds us what science confirms now, that I am because we are. So a very well-founded principle on the science of being human. And we can even create an experience where we just quickly reflect on this. I wish I had planned to have time to pause on this, but maybe just a takeaway to reflect on, because every leader has a story that began with someone else believing in them. And on this point, that's when I had an aha moment, and I had a blood rush thinking about Professor Mili, because I am standing here because she had a glimpse of belief on me coming into the public service sector, because you know how quick we label. No, she hasn't worked for the state. What? No, she doesn't have a doctorate. No, you know what we were talking about. But Professor Mili invited me to come and address you today because she has a belief in me. Thank you for that. So it's a story that each and everyone, and not just Professor Mili and her team. I love working with that team. Abovuyo Mpume, Ohumuzo. As we say, resilience, it's a collective effort in that. But thank you, Prof, for laying the platform for your people to even follow in your footsteps. So we can all here in the room think about that person who made it possible for you to be sitting in this room today. And even thinking outside of just your role or your academic or your professional role, just thinking about that mother who believed in you, who kept on saying faith-filling words upon you. So I think with the 5 minutes that I have left, let me just share one slide to close, because we managed to open 4 concepts into this. But I'm just gonna share very quickly on the 5th concept that talks about building sustainably together, the things that we need to be mindful of, to say, take note of your mindset. Relationships are important. Let's build capability. It takes a skill to be able to shift perspective. It takes a skill to be able to move between above and below the line, and building the culture of inclusion moment by moment. And that is how we can see sustainability in how we do. And this can be realized through a very simple idea of the fact that our organizations are not machines, they are living systems that are run by people, and resilient organizations are intergenerational by design. And so relationships are then the weave. I got this basket here that narrates an African context into this. And then the trust that we build holds the weave together, and purpose guides where we weave, guides the weave forward, and then our values will always be the anchor of the weave. And I thank you.
There will be a moment, as mentioned, to have a response, a big word of appreciation, please. In other places, I see this a lot as a word of appreciation. Yeah. And I love she mentioned some concepts. What stays with me towards the end was already the kind of stringing of your beautiful offering, Zingapi, that we're talking systems, we're talking structures within which there are processes, but these are not hard architecture because they are made of people, and because we belong there, they are malleable. They have a lot of plasticity. So energy says learn, grow, serve. Just remember, together. Thank you so very much, Zingapi. Nompumelelo. This is what we do. We don't trap anybody, nothing that is unworthy of being seen or declared. So we create a moment, and there is a picture moment, Zingapi, over here with your goodie bag on behalf of us all and the NSG in particular. Thank you so very much for honoring us in this manner. It's an NSG bag. Thank you. So back to back, we now have on the same line of resilience in a synergetic manner, the question of how. It is my privilege to have us welcome Mrs. Patricia Ledwaba-Mamecha, who is a seasoned, highly skilled executive and strategic leader with a wealth of experience in organizational management, governance, organizational leadership. Currently, the Chief Operation Officer, COO, at the Commission for Gender Gender Equality. With robust background in public administration, corporate governance, legal and regulatory affairs, gender-related matters, financial management, and operations management, Ms. Ledwaba-Mamecha has proven her capability to lead intricate organizations, optimize operational systems, and promote excellence in service delivery. She is a qualified attorney, notary, public and governance practitioner, conveyancer. She possesses an LLB, LLM, MBA, and guess what? Candidate. She's studying towards an LLD in administrative, constitutional, and international law, along with training in municipal finance management. She has occupied numerous strategic roles within private practice, banking sector, legislative domain, local government, parastatal organizations, including this Chapter 9 institution, the Commission for Gender Equality. Her fervor for gender issues and her drive for operational efficiency is unrivaled. It is my pleasure to say to you, please step forward, and may you please share from the perspective of the CGE and beyond, how we can have this intergenerational movement growing stronger and stronger.
Noted. Thank you, Program Director. I love doing things a bit differently. I set my own rules and execute accordingly. So through you, Chair, and also the NSG team, distinguished guests, protocol observed accordingly. I'm humbly requesting not to be on the stage because I'm a transformational and interactive leader. That's what I was advised and taught accordingly to say with the stage, I'm limiting for people to look at me. I want to be amongst people because I'm one of you as a woman. Without wasting time, I'll just be walking around so that I get the feel of the room. Without wasting time, I'm humbly requesting that we fly to the speaking notes. I was on my way from Tanzania when I was advised that I'll be speaking, so I just typed a few things. I'll be speaking from the heart and the mind more than anything else through the experience that I got. I am where I am. Let me just commence by saying I love the topic today. It speaks to me and it's very emotional because I started as a candidate attorney. Somebody said somewhere, one of the speakers to say, how do we open the field for women in law and for women in general and also for women leadership? So I am a living testimony of that. I started as a candidate attorney, going through manager, senior manager, HOD, municipal manager, COO. So I've been there and I can promise you that it's twice as hard being a woman because you need to prove your worth from academic to professional and also in the boardroom. I literally had to stand and say, Honorable so-and-so, I've been in the legislative sector as well. What has assisted me is drafting, knowing how to draft legislations. So I'm able to say, nah, there's nothing that I cannot do. From finance to strategy to any subordinate legislation, I actually cut it with a scissor. I was even told by the people that report to me, they call me Madlanga, like, oh, you're taking the document to Madlanga. It's gonna come back with a whole lot of red pens and stuff, because I always ask, what do you want to achieve? What is the value at stake? And then where is the CGE getting value? What is our marketing strategy? How are we growing from this document? What do I want to achieve with this document? Whenever a document is tabled before me, whether it's HR, whether it's any government department, I even got for example, I got an invite from this event. It was tabled before me. I don't remember where I was. They said, Patricia would like you to be part of this. Then I looked at it, I scrutinized. I'm like, there's no venue, there's no time. And then what am I supposed to do? Give me full information so that I make an informed decision whether I'm going or not, what is expected of me, and how long will I be there? Without that information, I will not be in a position to respond. And that was my final email, say the above is in order. Not that I want to be difficult, but I've learned that planning is everything. Set your own rules because in terms of a character as well, resilience stems from you as a person and your character. If your character is not strong enough, then every road will lead you home. You need to know where is your home because your home is not the same as the next person's home. I'm a lawyer by profession, but I told myself, when it comes to numbers, I'll definitely scrutinize it. When it comes to supply chain, I definitely scrutinize it. There's nothing I cannot scrutinize, and that's the bar I've set for myself. Because I know as a woman, you fight thrice as much for you to be successful. You fight thrice as much for you to be in a position to look good. So I'm a living testimony that you can go to school, have kids, have profession, and be anything and everything you want to be. I'm still a part-time model as well. So that one, it's achievable. It was just me saying, Patricia, we can do it. Who said you cannot be in leadership and still not look good? You can still do all those things, whether you are slaying or not, but we do it responsibly. Thank you, Program Director and NSG. That's me. I'm chilled like that. Not really strict, but I'm chill. I loved the first presenter, the public protector, stemming from the subordinate legislation, where it says the core mandate of today being Section 9 and 10, equality, human dignity in terms of our rights as women. I love equality. What does it mean? And also for us as women, do we uplift each other to be equal, or do we put each other down? We need to scrutinize, not say the right to equality, but how do we interpret it? Is it a literal meaning, a constitutional meaning? I like to give it a broader meaning, to say when you say the right to equality, you must be in a position to execute and implement it accordingly. Not sing it, but when it comes to execution, your plans are not there. In terms of equality, what are we doing as women? More specifically as a leader, I've seen that the challenge becomes with our internal controls, the policies. Our policies must be gender sensitive to actually coach and mentor women. I'm still in a mentorship program. We learn every day. It becomes prudent as women. If you want to become a leader, you must be diverse. I normally say when they say, good morning, COO, I'm like, good evening. Like, no, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from South Africa, what do you mean? He said, no, but it's morning. Then my question is, who told you that it's morning? Do you have empirical evidence to show that it's morning? Or you were indoctrinated to say that it's morning? They're like, okay, I take it back, I withdraw. Yes, that's why I'm saying good evening, because that's my evening at that particular moment. So it can be morning, but without empirical evidence to say there is a research, then my morning is a morning, my evening is an evening. So I normally take it like that with my colleagues, so they already know that, with the CEO, you will not win. So please, can we start with the first one without wasting time? I drafted quite a lengthy document, so I won't go through each and everything. I'll start with a proverb that says, a society that grows when all people plant trees, whose shades they know they shall never sit in. And this is an ancient proverb. Program Director, as I already indicated, I just drafted this as I was flying back home. Distinguished guests and colleagues, the proverb I begin today captures the essence of intergenerational responsibility. It reminds us of the progress that is not merely about what we achieve for ourselves, but what we intentionally build for those who come after us. Yet it's also invite a second question. That is, are younger generations merely beneficiaries of the trees planted by others, or are they active architects of the forest of the future? So as I said, I was just drafting this. It was just my speaking notes. We can move to the next one. Program Director, without wasting time. Let's move to the next one. The contradiction is, this is a corrector. This is the important one. The contradiction demands a critical reflection of how societies understand resilience. Traditionally, resilience has been viewed as the ability of individuals or institutions to withstand adversity and recover from setbacks. However, contemporary realities suggest that resilience must be understood more broadly. It is not merely just the capacity to survive the crisis. It is the collective ability of communities, institutions, nations and generations to adapt and innovative, learn and thrive amidst uncertainties. As the CGE, being the Commission for Gender Equality, we are a Chapter 9 institution. We work together with the Human Rights Commission and the PP. Our mandate stems from the subordinate legislation being the Act 108 of 1996, more specifically Section 187, which now our mandate is specifically within the context of gender equality, where it means that we protect, develop, and attain gender equality through monitoring, investigation, research, education, lobby, and also advise accordingly. And also we do a whole lot of gender investigations. We've done more specifically now with government institutions. We've seen that they do not have sexual harassment policies, and most women were being sexually harassed. And also more women as managers and senior management, they came forward and say we are being abused because we were given leadership positions. So those are the type of systematic investigations and interventions that we are doing. And our systematic investigation is more specifically, we call the head of department, the minister should it be, and also the deputy minister, and also the relevant DG, so that they come in account. We hold them accountable. So I love the phrase that says compel compliance. That's my most favorite part, to say, okay, if they are not complying, do they have policies? By when will they have policies? And also, how are they benefiting women? And also, we should not have policies that gather dust. We need to have policies that are actually implementable, that we can say there is return on investment, you know, when it comes to most of the time, what is harassment? What is sexual harassment? How do we gather evidence? And also, how are employers assisting us as women in ensuring that we move from being officers, specialists, managers, senior managers, and executive, because we are who we are because somebody else believed in us and gave us a chance to give it a shot. Thank you. Can we please move up? And then for women leaders in particular, intergenerational collaboration, it's not a luxury. That's me saying that it's not a luxury at all. And it's not really a favor. We should not fight to be in front. That's me. That's how passionate I feel about it. It is a necessity. It is a prerequisite, whether they like it or not, because the Constitution says the right to equality. And Section 2 of the Constitution says that any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void. So it is a necessity and a prerequisite that we need seats in the forefront, and not only seats, but empower us to execute accordingly. And many of us can identify a woman who opened a door for us, shared and advised at critical moments. Those are our mothers, our families, and the people that actually believed in you. Where I am, I have a bunch of women that believed in me, and also males that believed in me and said, we believe that this woman can take us to the next level. So we need to appreciate that as well. And more specifically, we should not look at the glass ceilings to say, now as a woman, I cannot go further. Program director, we need to understand that as women, when we are leaders, the rules cannot be the same as males. We have kids. We have responsibilities. We cannot be driving late at night. So that's why I was saying our policies must be gender sensitive. We have women that are drivers. How are we best assisting them to make sure that they thrive in their positions as well? Because we can't have a woman driving 1 a.m. at night. What are we saying to the safety of the woman? So that's why I'm strictly saying our systems and internal controls must support women as well. And also my arrival at the CGE, I did say, as women, we go through menstrual cycles. Some are painful. And then for some, it's normal. I said we need a menstrual leave. A woman needs at least a day or two wherever they cannot cope, where they can work from home, but work must be delivered. So can we please have that within their policies? And it's there. We support women because I am a woman. Some months it's very difficult for me to wake up. And I'm not ashamed to say it's difficult for me to wake up. I can't, but the work must be done, as opposed to me traveling to the office, in pain as I am. We know as women, we are women in here, right? Can I get a yes? So we know that months are not the same, right? Sometimes some months are very hot, so we need support from the employers as well. But work must carry on because those we have to execute in terms of the strategy, in terms of the APP and the OPP as we have signed, and also our agreements, those that must reign supreme. Because I have actually discovered I've discovered the trick. If you want your employees to work beyond working hours, support them, hear them. That's what I have deduced to say. Make sure that the environment that they have, it's not different from home. You do not want an employee that is there saying, what time am I knocking off? I literally, personally, and professionally disgrace a person that says, that undermines others, not under my watch. That cannot happen. It's you ship in or you ship out. Humanity, right to equality and dignity has to reign supreme so that we can deliver and be productive as women. I'm a bit biased towards women, but I'm a woman. Historically, leaders have often understood through hierarchical and individual lenses. Yet women across the globe have demonstrated alternative leadership models grounded in collaboration, inclusion, care, relationship building, and community. And these approaches may represent some of the most important leadership capabilities required in an increasingly complex and uncertain world. The challenge for women leaders today is not merely to occupy positions of power, but to transform how power is exercised. I do not have power, but if we both have power through teamwork, we'll go far. I can promise you that there was one department that was not performing when I joined the organization. And then through the first quarter, I just joined now the CGE. They were already performed 100% for the whole annual target. They were like, thank you. I was like, I believe because you can. So that's why we are trying to say, let's support each other so that we execute. But also succession planning. If it's there, why not? Succession planning is very important, and also continuous learning. The previous speaker spoke about the continuous learning, which is crucial. And also, I believe that I'm still learning. So I still have to develop certain skills so that I can be a better leader. I was advised to say, Patricia, I'm from Limpopo, so I normally ndiamba Chivenda. So they told me when I joined the leadership role, they said, every day you need to ask yourself, are you a leader or a manager? I was like, I'm not sure. They said a leader always empower others to become the better version of themselves. And then a manager always want to manage people and micromanage people, and then always takes the glory. So what do you want to be? I said, I want to be a leader. I need the person next to me to become a better version of themselves. And then I take glory when somebody else next to me is feeling good about it and actually saying, we have achieved as a department. That's what I'm trying to do. And that makes me sleep well at night, knowing that my team is doing it without me. or whenever they need my support and say we are stuck, that's where I chip in. I'm like, okay, that's where I chip in. But otherwise, the mandate is yours. Carry it the way you see fit. And then in that way, when people work from the heart, you see results. And I'm living proof to say I am seeing results. One person, when they were saying they were not performing, they performed the annual target in Q1. So I'm living proof that that model works. Can we go up? I'll just pass the one with women, democracy, and power. I already included it. As we know, we are going for elections, and also women representation becomes very pertinent as well. We know we have a very high youth unemployment rate within South Africa. So it becomes very prudent that we encourage each other as well, and also open up opportunities where we can, and also making sure that we advertise accordingly. The previous speaker spoke about the EE targets. That is close to my heart. Whenever HR have advertised, I always say, can I have my numbers? Me and numbers, you cannot divorce me. I was like, okay, before you give me an explanation, I want my numbers. Where are we in numbers? Once you've given me your numbers, then we can explain. In terms of, and one thing I've seen that works in terms of reporting, it's your dashboards. Dashboards will give you a simple analysis in terms of Q1. If you have 9 departments, I'm able to see which department is not performing with dashboards, because it's very specific to say, okay, give me my numbers. Then I know, okay, this one is adequate, achieved. All right, how can I assist you to exceed the target? Then that's my conversation with the department, whether I have the technical skill or not. But the user department must be in a position to tell me, how best can I assist you? Talk to me. Which doors do you think are not opening? Should I open for you so that you exceed the target? Not under my watch, I will not have somebody who's not performing. And also employee wellness, we do have it. It's very important, colleagues. I've seen most employees' mental capacity issues becomes a very critical issue. So yeah, I always have to make sure that the employees they do have access to the wellness programs as well. As we are now in the Women's Month, we need to make sure that we support them accordingly, because not every woman that comes in the office, they're okay emotionally. So we need to make sure that the environment is fit for purpose, and also the mental wellness. If they feel, I always say that having a mental issue or an emotional issue, it should not be a disgrace. Please access the wellness programs so that we support each other, because that builds resilience. As I said, resilience commences from your character. If your character does not display resilience, then everything else is going to crumble around you. But once your character builds resilience to say, me as an individual, in my personal capacity, I'm resilient in terms of the outcomes or outputs of my key performance areas within life, then everything else around you complements accordingly. Program director, and can we please scroll up? As I said, I was just drafting this as I was busy. We also, as I was busy on my way back, we also have international instruments that supports women and the advancement of women. As I said, within the institutions, we have international treaties like CEDAW, the Beijing platforms as well. And also we do possess those in terms of the rights of the child and also the African Youth Charter. So can we please go up? The next one, I'll just sum it up to say it's in terms of the GBVF. We know there's a lot of gender-based violence within South Africa and also femicides. Most people suffer in silence, and not only suffer in silence, A person don't just wake up and say, I've been abused or killed. The signs are there, we just decide to ignore them. It's either most of the complaints that we receive from the office. I think for Q1, we've received 161 complaints about it was mainly for gender-based violence and femicide. So most women are complaining that they're being abused at work within the offices, obviously, contrary to internal controls. And then the second one is they are being abused at home. After a long day at work, that a woman must cook, a woman must do this, you must assist kids with the homeworks, and then at the end, you get abused from the husband, and also other complaints are from the in-laws as well, you know, I would say cultural practices as well. So those are the type of complaints that we are getting as the Commission for Gender Equality. But there is one part that really breaks my heart, and it's very emotional to me, because we've received a few complaints, and I've worked for the Commission for Gender Equality before as a legal officer. I just came back now. I don't understand why women allow their kids to be sexually assaulted by partners. Like, sorry, I'm emotional about that, but I don't understand. But I also got time to interview the mothers. And one of the key factors is, but Patricia, if I don't let this man, where will I sleep? I don't work. I don't have a house. Oh, I do work, but my days are too much. So if this man is molesting my child, there is nothing I can say. Like, women, please, resilience is power. Economic transformation is power. Please empower yourselves. There's no resilience without economic transformation. That I can't comprehend. And another thing, there was a complaint wherein a child, a 6-year-old, was molested by the grandfather. I asked the mother, where were you? Said, no, I went to church. And during trial, the wife, it's the wife, okay, I think the daughter and the grandmother, I would say the mother and the grandmother went to church, and then the grandfather was molesting the child more than once. And then it was during trial. I asked, because I couldn't comprehend. Like, it's a 6-year-old, this child was repeatedly raped, you know, they can't even hold their urine anymore. I literally had to see them like that. I asked, I had to ask, what happened? What happened? The mother said, my father can't do that. And the mother in the witness stand said, no, literally, initially. The wife said, yes, maybe he did that, because most of the time, the child says, whenever I go to church on Sundays, the grandfather bathed the 6-year-old. So now it rings a bell to say, this child was molested for over years now. Because I asked the child, can you hold your urine? He says, no, I can't, even at school. I can't anymore. Then I asked the woman, the grandmother, okay, fine, you are going to be the witness. And guess what? In the witness box, the woman said, my husband can't do that. I don't know where this child is getting all these things. So working for the Commission for Gender Equality, women, it's depressing and emotional, because we have to fend for women. We have to fend for kids. I'm not comprehending, but I had to make sure that that man is arrested and behind bars, because I couldn't comprehend it. What is worse is a 6-year-old is HIV positive. So yeah, it's just that way. And now the 6-year-old, the mother doesn't want them, so we had to say, to take them to the child of safety. we are still taking care of the child. I just said whoever has something, they can just donate, it's very emotional. So that's why I'm saying the concept of resilience, it stems from your character as a woman. Because without resilience, you're nothing. If you don't have resilience, people will take you from pillar to post and you will be without identity. And what is the use of celebrating Women's Month as a woman if you do not have resilience? So I'm saying to each and every woman here, go back and have an introspection of who you are, where you want to be, and how you intend getting there. Because for young women that are there, they need us. I can promise you, things that we come across as Commission for Gender Equality, I can't comprehend. You can't comprehend. They are very emotional. So can we please go up? That is all I needed to say. We do take those complaints as the Commission for Gender Equality. We have footprint in the 9 provinces. I'm responsible for the operations in the 9 provinces. So if you have issues related to that, or you have your employer discriminating against your rights, you are able to come to us, and then we will be in a position to assist accordingly. And then colleagues, when we are addressing shared challenges through collective action, I've already said it. Collective action is what we do. And our mandate in terms of the subordinate legislation, the CGE Act, promotes that we collaborate. Sorry. I was talking about the kids and that were raped and stuff. So that is very emotional for me. So collective action and teamwork, that's what we have to execute for us to be in a position to conquer. So can we go up, please? And also here we are talking about socioeconomic rights, mental health crisis. I've already addressed it. As I said, I would love to speak from the heart because I capture everything here. The cyberbullying, well, the body image expectations, I'll not say much on that, but the right to equality, you need to feel free in your own body. No one has to dictate. We know there are BBLs and stuff, but no one should be in a position to say, for you to remain my wife, you have to lose weight. We have seen those. So be comfortable with who you are. If you want to change, it should be your own discretion to change because you want to feel good about yourself and not any other person. So can we go up? Well, I love this one to say, as women leaders, we must therefore resist temptation to view generations as competing for space, recognition, or influence. The goal is not to determine whether one generation is more progressive, more experienced, or more deserving than the other. The goal is to recognize that the future depends on our ability to combine the courage of younger women with the wisdom of those that came before us. Well, we know about climate change. Due to time constraint, I'll just pass it. Please go up. But also I did say about mentorship, sponsorships as well, to say let's assist each other. But then how do we go forward? How do we go forward as women is inclusive leadership as a catalyst for resilience. More specifically, with inclusive leadership, it has become a strategic necessity, not only for organizations, but for advancement of women and girls across generations. Research consistently demonstrated that diverse leadership teams make better decisions, generate more innovative solutions, and are better equipped to navigate complexities. Yet for women, the conversation about leadership must go beyond representation. It must be about influence, opportunities, succession, the deliberate cultivation of future generations of women as leaders. Can we go up? Can we look at the next pointer? because I've already covered most of the things, as you can hear. That's why I said I prefer talking from the heart, because you cover most of the things as opposed to writing. The second one is mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship as instruments of transformation. I've already said this, but also mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship, it must be supported by internal controls as well. Because if it's not supported by internal controls and we make sure that it's signed, it will lose meaning within the cracks of the institutions. So once it's in writing, it's in writ, and we also make sure that it's executed accordingly. So what can women leaders do? As women, we have a responsibility not only to succeed ourselves, but to create pathways for others to succeed. Intergenerational resilience is built through intentional action. I've already said this. What can we do as women leaders? Every woman in here is a leader. I always call women my queen. They were asking me, why are you saying my queen? I said, every woman is a queen in their own right. Humanitarian, a woman that makes a difference in daily lives of somebody else and kids. Those are queens. So be a queen in your own right and claim your space, because no one is coming to save you. Claim your space, and then you'll see everyone will follow suit. What can we do? Mentorship, mentoring emerging women leaders, sponsoring talented women, creating space for intergenerational dialogues, opening doors to network and opportunities. Please go up. Sharing information and power, normalizing conversation about failure and self-doubt. That is resilience. If you are doubting yourself today, ask yourself, why are you doubting yourself? And come up with a mitigation strategy. You know, at work, we always sign performance agreements, and they always give us deadlines for performance agreements. Do you, as a woman, have your own performance agreement as an individual? Because you cannot, what you do on the left, you must do on the right. The equation must balance. What are the performance agreement targets that you set up for yourself this year? And where are you with those execution plans? As much as we do quarterly reports, you need to report to yourself as well. Have time to say, where am I in terms of my execution plan? Am I falling behind, or am I on par? Because that is resilience. It starts with character. Because we wouldn't want people outside or at work to look like they are performing, but personally they are suffering. There must be an equation balance. So that's where I'm heading with this. Championing diversity and inclusion. That is the last one. The third one is social cohesion and national building. Please go up. Basically, I've been saying I touched on social cohesion, and also the last speaker did touch on it in terms of the Bill of Rights being the subordinate legislation on socioeconomic rights, on what we can do. And then the examples that I've given there is South Africa's Women's National Coalition, and also the 1956's March, but also it stems from the subordinate legislation being the Constitution. So I've already touched on it. As I said, speaking from the heart is easier. Community-based caregiving and support networks, women's peace building initiatives, women's self-help groups, savings group, and stokvels, mentorship circles, and women in leadership. And women, please, another thing, let's look at who we confide in. It just came to my mind. Don't confide in everything and everyone that comes your way. Make sure when you confide in somebody, they would give you progressive way forward. Don't say, there's this person, women, you confide, then you know, okay, we are having a problem. You must be in a position to tell yourself, that person does not belong in my circle. make sure your circle. You know, when you put your money into the investment account, there's a return on investment. Your friends must give you return on investment on their friendship. If they're not giving you a return on investment on your friendship, then you need to have a very robust discussions. You know, when the institution is not doing well, they tell you that cost containment. We are cost containing. So you need to now go back and say, nah, you don't belong in, my strategy does not include you, my friend. Well, I'm one person, I'm a very direct talker. I always say, you know what, you don't belong in my circle. I'm sorry to say that, but you're not adding value. So from now on today, you can say hi, I can say hi, but it ends there. So that's me. I'm a very direct person. And it's very easy, it becomes easier to be a direct person. What I'm saying, women, is please look at your cycle as well. That builds your resilience. But show me your friends and I'll show you your future. So please, if you have friends that are normally saying, "Charming, got weekends," and also during the week, you must ask yourself, where are you seeing yourself? You must look at that friend, you'll see your future and yourself in the, like, am I like that? Is there a part of me that's like that? Nah. Value yourself. I value myself. I'm like, nah, that's not me. Well, some that would say, I will say this in Sepedi, but why born, ne? But look, you see, but you think too much of yourself. When somebody says to me, why born? I get a yes, because the first thing that I see in a mirror when I wake up is myself. I need to see myself. So before somebody else can see me, I need to see myself. So when they say, why born again, you are so correct. You are so correct. You have never been so correct. So yes, and I'll continue seeing myself first. So that's the part of building resilience. It starts with you. In conclusion, Honorable Queens, colleagues, program director, as I conclude, I return to the question which I began. What legacy will we leave for women who come after us? As women leaders, our responsibility extends beyond our own successes. We are called to build bridges between generations, to open doors that were once closed to us, and to ensure that the progress we have made becomes a platform for future generations to even go further. Our task is therefore not simply to coexist across generations, but to co-create a future grounded in equality, my favorite word, dignity, inclusion, and opportunity. For the CGE, being the Commission for Gender Equality, I'm marketing now. Intergenerational dynamics is not merely a social aspiration. It is a constitutional, developmental, and leadership imperative. It reminds us that resilience is not measured by individuals' achievements, but by what we build together, what we protect together, and what we leave behind for others. The true measure of our leadership will be whether future generations of women inherit stronger institutions. In terms of appointment, this previous speaker spoke about appointments. As introduced, I'm a governance practitioner, so that part speaks to me in terms of stronger institutions. The appointments must be based not only as women, yes, in terms of the EE targets, but ethical leadership, it becomes very important. Every manager, every officer, you must be accountable. I remember when I asked, I said, what do you do when you come to work? They said, let me look at my agreement first. You can't wake up if you don't know what you're going to do and what your plan for the day is. You cannot wake up. If you wake up and you don't know what your plan is for the day, please go back and do an introspection. You cannot empower the next person if you cannot empower yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Let's start there. Because if you pour from an empty cup, what do you expect? With the wind that comes, I always say, you will be moving from pillar to post because you are not firm. And I always say to my managers when they say, please, CEO, come and sign this. I don't work at the disaster management mode. When did you know that this thing is due? I cannot work on your behest because now you are on a disaster management mode. You are turning me into something that I'm not, and I'll never be. So please sort it out and then bring me results. I cannot. And I cannot be turned into something that I'm not. So as a woman, my humble request is to be firm to what you believe in. That's the first part. As I conclude, when we're creating opportunities, deeper equality, my favorite word, not just equality, be able to interpret equality. And where there is no equality, you must be able to pick it up. And also all your internal controls and also your policies, they need to have that equality mode and mood. It should not discriminate. But remember the Constitution, it says discrimination should be fair. Section 36, familiarize yourself to say, when is this discrimination fair and when is it unfair? In that way, you will know that, no, here, I'm being unfairly discriminated against. Once you know the determination test is very clear. So with that, colleagues, and more hope that we inherit within ourselves, colleagues, thank you for being active listeners and participating. I humbly appreciate it.
A very, very humbling moment. And yeah, lofty heights belong perhaps in certain contexts for certain times. And this is this one literal reality check to say, are we deliberate about inclusion, bridge building, reciprocity, mutuality? Those are the concepts, keywords I sampled from this lovely, lovely elaboration that you presented for us. So like we do, Madam Ledwaba Mamecha, on behalf of the NSG, let Nompumelelo do her thing. Thank you so, so very much. Yeah. Sorry. So back to the practicality so I can see everybody. That's 8-point intentional action reminder. I think we will treasure that, and both presentations, all three actually, copies thereof will be shared in PDF after this session. So rest assured, you will have a lovely double take and further source of reference at your leisure. Now, we are not one directional, even as we had that moment in the morning with our first input maker. We now have the privilege of welcoming randomly selected. It was out of convenience. So if I were to defend this as a methodological choice, I'll say this was convenient sampling and of course informed and voluntary participation. So may I ask in no particular order, the following: Kopano Maketa. She's an LLB graduate and she's recently enrolled at the NSG. Want to please come forward here? Ms. Asanda Penny, she's head of materials management, procurement and SEM at Eskom, National Transmission Company, South Africa. Want to please come forward when you sit? my colleague, Louise Lepan. She's a Chief Director for Senior Management and Professional Development at the National School of Government. Won't you come, please, Louise? Not least, Lesedi Ndaba. She is studying in her final year in Public Affairs at the Tshwane University of Technology. So the request to them is a simple one. They are not being ambushed, but it is just to say we could, time permitting, do exactly this, replicate it times the 200 persons in this room, that we just saying, let's have in a diversified manner here what lended, what prompted, what in their thinking and sense making, their meaning making. So we'll start on my extreme left, the city, and progress this way. So each of you have the mic, over to you. About 6, maybe 7 minutes each, maximum 10. Thank you so much. So you will then hand over to each other. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I go by the name of Lesedi Ndaba, and I'm a final year student doing public affairs in the Tshwane University of Technology. So as a young woman who aspires to serve in leadership, today's discussion has reminded me that the rights of women are at the heart of equality, dignity, and justice. While our constitution protects and promotes this right, I have learned that they only become meaningful when women are aware of them, embrace them, and are also empowered to exercise them. I have also learned that leadership is not simply about holding a position, but about creating opportunities, breaking barriers, and empowering other women to rise. As a woman, we have a responsibility to support, to uplift, and to advocate for one another, not only for ourselves, but every woman whose voice may not be heard. When we are entrusted with leadership, we must lead with integrity, fairness, and ethical conduct, because the way we lead today shapes the opportunities available to the women who come after us. I believe that this meaningful change begins with us. If we want to see a public sector, for instance, that is ethical, transparent, and accountable, then we must first begin ethical, transparent, and accountable in our own leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel honored to follow that input. So we had really powerful speakers today, and I want to thank Prof. Millie for the opportunity to be in the panel. The question is, how can we as leaders be future fit? And the inputs from our speakers really, the question raised for me was, how do we build trust? How do we build trust? So we need consistency, we need competency, we need character, we need credibility, we need connection, and we need empathy. And sometimes we even have to navigate criticism. So what I learned from Advocate Dinky Dube was the legal and constitutional rights of women. It was a powerful reminder again to go back into the work of the Constitution and to live that in my daily life. The opportunity to be in the masterclass is to excite us to be literate, to be reading, to be listening, to be understanding. And our leadership is not confined only to our offices. It's in our communities, our churches, our schools, and our social clubs. I recently learned from Prof. Tuli Madunsela that culture eats strategy for breakfast. What does it eat for lunch? Justice. I'm so taken by the saying that Masingapi used. Leadership is a relay, not a race. And the thought that came to me was, in a relay, you must be found running. You must be found running before you get the baton. You must be in shape, in top performance before you get the baton. You must run your leg of the race to the best of your ability and hand over to the next leg. Thank you.
Thank you. As you've already heard, my name is Asanda Penny, and I've got the honor and the privilege of heading up Materials Management Department. It is a section within the procurement and supply chain at ESCOM, but now we are known as National Transmission Company South Africa. We became a subsidiary of ESCOM about 2 years ago. So Ms. Ngwevu asks, what labels and assumptions do we put on ourselves and others? And Ms. Mkwanazi answers and says, in a way, being a woman is not a market failure. However, it is market success because we contribute immensely to the economy of the country. Studies are there where women lead, women thrive. As Ms. Mameja did also allude to the fact that she managed to bring up departments that weren't performing, and she is a woman. Another thing that I learned from Advocate Dube was we need to use our values as a guide. We need to be ethical and adopt Ubuntu leadership. What is Ubuntu leadership? We know that the concept of Ubuntu, which is an African proverb, which says, I am because we are. And some of us can actually get confused and think that Ubuntu is weakness, but Ubuntu is not. We are able, as leaders, while having Ubuntu, able to hold people accountable, as we have heard. We need to professionalize the sector through merit-based recruitment. I mean, the stats are staggering. Stats indicate that 63% of women hold managerial position. Only about between 44% and 46% hold key decision-making positions, which is your senior manager, management level. We need to get to a point where even ESCOM has a CEO at the helm, a lady CEO, not men. We have women that occupy technical roles. However, we continue to see women who are engineers pivoting to commercial qualification. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we need to ask ourselves, what is it about us as women that makes us to pivot? Because when we finished matric and we went to varsity and we started these careers, we wanted to be engineers. What has changed now? Did motherhood change us? Did the work environment, the policies that are there, by the way, are they working for us as women? Are we there when these policies are drafted? Is there a woman voice in that room? That's what I got from Advocate Dube. The future is female ladies. However, I need to say, we need men as allies. I don't think we have a man in the room, with the exception of the guys that are serving us with water and also the cameramen. How are we supposed to get to these roles if we don't have men as allies? Because could we be inadvertently creating that animosity and that jealousy between us and men, because now we are on a course to promote women, but we can't leave men behind. We need them. We need them. We spoke about sponsors. Most women in the room, I'm sure they can say they have a male mentor. Maybe let me ask, who has a male mentor? Or who's been mentored by a man? I know I have been mentored by a man. Yes, there are a few hands in the room. And then why are we then leaving them behind?
So we need to look at the concept of that. We need to bring males on board. Yeah, and also we talk about sponsorships, which it was a term that was ventilated at length. But nobody tells us, how do we get these sponsors? How do we get these people to sponsor us? How do we get them to speak about us in rooms where we are not available? I looked at the results when we were doing the mentometer. Most of the things that were written there were mentors, was also sponsorships, but we didn't touch a lot on these topics. Maybe as a suggestion, we need to have a database of all mentors within the public sector or even the private sector to mentor women so that we don't create environments that are toxic, because we can't shy away from that. Most women know we have this belief that we can't work well with each other. I know there's a case of bullying that has been reported in another division within ESCOM, and it's a bad case of bullying. How do we lead from a point of security? I think you kind of touched on that, Sis Zingapi. How do we lead from a point of security, not from a point of fear? Because we do all these things, we become toxic, because I believe that as women we rule or we lead from a point of fear, not from a point of security. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm Kopano Maketa. I recently completed my LLB at UNISA. And currently, I guess I can say I'm a stay-at-home daughter. I'm very thankful to the School of Government for setting up this whole event. It was really an eye-opener more than anything. It broadened my horizon. I didn't even think that there were events such as these. I was only constrained to what I had learned throughout the past years, you know, as an LLB student. So I'm thinking, no, we are only confined to law. You know, okay, women can be leaders, but it's only by nepotism. But today I'm learning a completely different thing, that hard work gets you there, and that leaders are raised from the environments that they are brought up in. And, you know, this is a positive environment that can facilitate such growth, you know. So I'm actually very inspired by the women that I'm looking at right now. I want you all to remember that you are paving the way for people like myself and the two ladies that I was seated with. We are still very young, finding our feet professionally. So we are literally entrusting you with our futures and hoping that you can, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Firstly, I'd like to begin by showing sincere appreciation to Advocate Dinky Dube. Yeah, I'm glad that I saw someone in the legal field, you know, a prosperous woman, you know, like she literally, she made me excited that, okay, maybe things are gonna look up for me in the future, you know? Like, yes, I'm also going to be a woman in power, especially in the legal field. Like, the fact that she was the first speaker was like, it was a mind-blowing experience. So she basically touched on the Constitution, not merely as an abstract document, because I don't think we can say that we know the Bill of Rights like the back of our hands. We don't even know what Section 9 states unless someone quotes it to us. So I think maybe we should place it as a mandate to put the Constitution within, I don't know, some kind of curriculum, you know, that we should make it a part of the learning process, like in early childhood development, that children should know that they have a right to security, a household, freedom and security, you know, things like that. I love the fact that she touched on toxic behavior in the workplace as well. I think maybe as women, as we rise to leadership, we feel threatened in some way. We tend to gatekeep or knowledge hoard, as Ms. Ngweu was saying. We hoard knowledge for ourselves, thinking that, if another woman surpasses me, they won't recognize me anymore. I think maybe we should look beyond recognition and think more so about building each other. That's what true leadership is. It's building those who are with you or those who are behind you or below you. You know, that's how we grow as women. And as women, more than anything, we are marginalized in society. So we need to show that we stand as a unit. Because men support each other. Men are selfish beings. You know, men will always stand with each other. They even condone their wrong behaviors and stand with a fellow brother. So what about us? We need to stand with fellow women as well, especially in cases of, let's say, rape or gender-based violence. We need to stand with women and believe her first, because it isn't a woman's instinct to just lie about being violated in such a way. When Ms. Ledwaba touched on the little 6-year-old, I was close to tears, because it's a very triggering situation. Because how can such a young girl child be violated in such a way and not be believed by an older woman? It doesn't make sense that a woman stands with a man and not her own kind. So more than anything, I am going to emphasize that we stand together as women. And okay, my next point is that I'd like to touch on leadership initiatives. So for a young woman like myself who aspires to be in a leadership position, I would like to see more programs such as these, like at least every 2 weeks or a monthly, like, you know, opportunities where I can network and know that there is a woman there who has my back, as there's a woman out there who has my back, that there's a woman out there who is going to speak my name and show support, and I can probably grant her the same courtesy. So yes, at the beginning of this year, I had joined a mentorship program called For Women in Law. At first, I was clueless. I didn't know that what it would be about. But I learned to build a community amongst young women like myself. It helped me build my personal brand as well. And I saw that there are many people like myself. It's just that there's a lack of exposure. So once again, I'd like to say thank you to the NSG for an opportunity such as this.
Program Director, I wanted to gift a song to all the ladies, but you might not hear the words. I'm going to read the song's words. It's just 4 stanzas. It says Rooted, and it's written by Aisha Badru. It says, plant your feet upon the earth, know your value, know your worth. Take a breath that's long and deep, you're carried by the ground beneath. Feel the sunshine on your skin, a lotus flower blossoming. Your journey is your offering. You are here for a reason. Send your roots down through the dirt, anchoring you through the hurt. With every breath, lengthen your spine, reaching steady towards the light. Feel the sunshine on your skin. Turn up the wiser voice within. Your story is your offering. You are here for a reason. Tabo, please.
Plant your feet upon the earth. Know your value, know your worth. Take a breath that's long and deep. You're carried by the ground beneath. Feel the sunshine on your skin. a lotus flower blossoming. Your journey is your offering. You are here for a reason. Send your roots down through the dirt, anchoring you through the hurt. With every breath, lengthen your spine, reaching steady towards the light. Feel the sunshine on your skin. Turn up the wiser voice within. Your story is your offering. You are here for a reason.
To be continued. So if we, as I said, had time on our side, we would have opened this kind of reflection moment to each one of us. Please don't stop. There is no way that one thought won't spark another. There is no way that one issue, question will not spark another. And even more so where we are now, what is my intent? What kind of shift am I already part of that I need to embolden? What kind of opportunity can I wedge even for more visibility and more significance institutionally, societally, starting with self? Ladies, a big, big thank you. We really appreciate your offering. And if you go to Facebook and on this particular link, you'll see that we are indeed a lovely community. Somebody's mom, just now. Let me read. Thank you so much, team, for bringing this to our attention. Just in time and so beautifully affirming. This now. Well done, city. You spoke well, child. Even though I felt nervousness from the voice, I'm a proud mother. So from one sister to another, from one mother to a child, from daughter to sibling, we're all in this together. May these seeds germinate and may we blossom. Some perhaps fruit we will see and be part of, and some will be forward for the next generation. I would like now to declare, you may not have seen it, but it is there. We have no control over certain circumstances, but we will not stop. I'd like to remind by declaration that if you look at our poster, it says we encourage the participation, the presence of men who are committed to enabling us, who are allies. So we will not stop. Amongst these, Asanda is a colleague who's going to close as we do so now. Mr. Khomotso Hadebe, if you may step forward, please, and you represent the voices that would have loved and the faces would have loved in numbers that are not here now, but you will enable, perhaps stimulate a certain kind of shift by action, not just as a sentiment. Over to your comments out.
Yeah. Thank you, Program Director. I must say, to be the minority, and but then thanks to the acting principal of the National School of Government, who is championing Women in Leadership program, but also under her leadership, she came up with a program called Reframing the Role of Men in Transformational Leadership. And that's the program that I'm managing, where we are also putting together men in leadership so that these issues of gender inclusivity, it's not only issues that are talked by women only, but we also, as men, we can also be able to talk about them so that we can be sensitive and be able to understand. You see, when you say we are in pain, you know, we will not understand. But then if we are in those spaces, and then we get taught. So those are the programs that acting principal. Let's appreciate her for embracing men in leadership as well. And I must say, Dr. James Engri says, a Ghanaian educator, he says, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And as I'm sitting down there, I'm busy writing notes. And as a man, I feel I'm educated, but how much more as a nation we are educated, because there's many of you here, and there's a saying that says, Watinta bafazi. Watinta bafazi. Yeah, this is the generation of the Lillian Gois, the generation of Helen Joseph, the generation of Frima Musa, the generation of Sophia Tibrain. I must say, take what you have learned here and go and multiply it where you. And I liked what our speaker said, and there was that synergy in whatever that they were saying, starting from acting principal. She said, as women, you need to support one another. Ne? So if I had, I think you have also heard that you need to support one another. Madam Zingapi indicated that as women, you need to advocate for other women as well. And let's appreciate our speaker, Madam Zingapi. And one of our speaker also, it was the first speaker who advocate Dube, who indicated that as you rise as a woman, don't forget other women. As you rise, don't forget other women. Let's appreciate our speaker. Our speaker also, Madam Ledwaba, who said rules must be changed. Okay, as women, you need to advocate for women's rights, and being a leader, it's someone who listen, even the juniors. And I want to share with you that at the National School of Government, the program Women in Leadership, it's an executive program. It's only for women at senior executive programs. But within the National School of Government, there are two ladies who, whenever they are coordinating these executive programs, they always hear these voices from those that are junior. Did you hear even students, women here, they are saying something? So let's appreciate uNompumelelo Lukele. I know some of you have been, there's Nompumelelo there. And let's appreciate Vuyo Matapo. These are the women who said it cannot only for executive. And they were talking to a woman leader who is Professor Paile. So leadership, you must listen to the juniors. Look what Professor Paile did. She listened, and look what we have today. Let's appreciate our professor. And you know, I attended a men's conference on the 14th of February. And what I learned at that men's conference is that women, they appreciate, you know, to be acknowledged. They must be seen. And I see most of you are dressed so nice. So as I call your department, just 1 minute to just stand up and so that we can appreciate departments that are here. I'll start with the National School of Government. Let's see. DPSA in the house. All the ladies from the health fraternity, health, EMS, Department of Health. Ladies from COGTA. Whoa. Ladies from SALGA. SARS. Insurance SITA. IEC. Department of Higher Education, Department of Justice, Department of Social Development, Department of Fisheries and Forestry, and CSIR, Home Affairs, Tshwane University of Technology, Communication and Digital Technologies, ICASA, Northwest. Can you imagine? All the way from Northwest, Office of the Premier in the cocktail, and many, and those who came privately because the advert went on social media, ESCOM. If I didn't call you, shout your name, shout your institution. Water and sanitation. Government, oh, wonderful. Okay, let me give you, and let me just give you an announcement. Hey. Okay. From here, ladies, please, this is a safe space. Immediately after this, even myself, Zenzele, and the technicians, we are going to leave you so that you are alone. You'll not even see me that side. So just be there and network with each other. When you move out from here, it's either you move to the right, and then there's the pasture there, it's named the deck, and then also you can also move from this direction as well. You just go, it's just behind this building, and they've prepared some nice, I went there to see, I saw some trio of chocolate, mousse cake, red velvet baked cheesecake, fresh fruit salad, English toffee. So there's a lot for you to enjoy yourself. Please don't go and relax and network with one another. Thank you very much. And I cannot say thank you without appreciating the technician. Without them, we were not going to be connecting and also being live as we are. Let's appreciate our communication unit and the technicians. On that note, program director. Yo.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I love that. That's actually my thing. So do you have anyone?
But umbrella next, how does it look? I can no answer converse.